There is a strange truth about life that almost no one knows. The more we try to understand it, the more it slips out of our hands. Imagine holding a handful of water. If you grip tightly, it leaks through your fingers. But if you cup your palms gently, the water rests quietly, reflecting the sky. Life works the same way. The harder we try to control it, the more it escapes us. And yet, when we loosen our grip, it flows with us. This is the paradox. We believe knowledge will set us free, but sometimes it is our obsession with knowing that keeps us trapped. We live in an age of information, where answers are only a search away, yet our hearts often feel heavier than ever. It is as if we are drowning in facts, but starving for wisdom. We think we need certainty to be safe, but certainty itself often builds the very prison we want to escape. Picture standing at the edge of a vast forest at dusk. The path ahead disappears into the shadows, unknown and unpredictable. Your mind races. What's out there? Where does this lead? Am I safe? The instinct is to demand answers before stepping forward. But here's the riddle. If you insist on complete clarity before moving, you will never take a step. The forest will remain closed. Only when you dare to walk, not knowing, do the trees open their secret pathways. Alan Watts often reminded us that life is not a problem to be solved, but a dance to be experienced. Yet most of us approach existence like anxious mathematicians, hoping to pin down every variable before we allow ourselves to live. We want guarantees in love, certainty in work, and predictability in tomorrow. But the deeper secret, what almost no one knows, is that the richest parts of life unfold only in the space of uncertainty. So the central question becomes, what happens if what we fear most, the unknown, is not a threat, but the very ground of freedom? This is not just a poetic curiosity. It is a radical invitation. Because if the unknown is not an enemy, then our whole way of relating to life must change. The endless chase for answers, the clinging to security, the desperate search for control, suddenly these are revealed as distractions. The mystery, which we have tried to banish, may actually be our closest friend. And so we stand at the edge of that forest. Do we freeze, demanding to see the entire map? Or do we take the first step into the twilight, trusting that the path will appear as we walk? There's a man I once knew. Let's call him David. David was the type of person who needed certainty in everything. At work, he couldn't delegate a single task without double-checking every detail. At home, he planned family vacations down to the minute, with backup plans for his backup plans. Even when dining at a new restaurant, he would spend an hour reading reviews just to make sure the dish he ordered would be safe. On the surface, David looked responsible, even admirable. People praised him for being organized, but if you looked closer, you'd see a man constantly tense, shoulders tight, jaw clenched, eyes darting. His family loved him, but they often whispered that living with him felt like living in a military camp. Every surprise felt like a threat. Every bit of uncertainty became a crisis. One summer, his daughter Emily wanted to learn how to ride a bike. She was 7 years old, full of that wild, playful spirit that children carry so naturally. But David couldn't let go of the handlebars. Literally. He held on to the back of her bike seat, running beside her, correcting every wobble, lecturing her on balance and posture. Emily would cry, "Dad, let me try." But he was terrified she would fall. Day after day, he controlled the bike for her. And day after day, Emily grew more frustrated. Then, one evening, while David was distracted, Emily's mother quietly took her outside. She gave her a gentle push, whispered, "Just go," and let go. Emily wobbled, nearly toppled, but then, miraculously, she found her balance. She pedaled forward, laughing and shouting, "I did it!" The whole neighborhood could hear her joy. When David saw it, he stood frozen. At first, his heart nearly stopped, his little girl riding without his hand, without his control. But then he noticed the look on her face, pure freedom. That night, something cracked open inside him. He realized his constant grip, meant to protect, was actually preventing the very thing he longed to give: her freedom, her confidence, her joy. We are all a little like David. We cling to certainty, thinking it will keep us safe. But in truth, life only opens up when we loosen our grip. The first wobbly moments may feel terrifying, but they are the gateway to balance. The unknown is not a punishment. It is the space where growth happens. David's story isn't just about a father and a bicycle, it's about the way most of us live. We want to hold the handlebars of life, convinced that our grip is the only thing standing between us and disaster. But here is the principle: life's balance emerges not from control, but from trust. Look at a river. It never forces its way in a straight line. It bends, curves, and meanders, yet somehow it always finds the ocean. If the river insisted on controlling its course, refusing to adapt, it would dry up against the rocks. But by yielding, it flows endlessly. Human beings, however, often live like rigid rivers, terrified of bending, determined to know exactly where we'll end up before we even begin. Alan Watts once said, "To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float." This is the truth almost no one knows. Freedom is not the absence of risk, but the willingness to move without needing guarantees. Think of the forest again. The trees do not demand certainty about the weather. The oak doesn't shout at the sky, "Promise me there will be rain tomorrow." It simply grows, season after season, trusting that change is its nourishment. In fact, it is the very uncertainty of weather, the storms, the sun, the droughts, that shapes the tree's strength. In our lives, the same law applies. The friendships that mean the most, the love that transforms us, the opportunities that define our path, all of them emerged from moments we could not predict. We did not schedule them into existence. They arrived, like Emily's balance on the bicycle, unexpected, fragile at first, but real. The paradox is this: when we loosen our need to know, life often gives us more than we could have planned. When we stop clinging to certainty, the unknown ceases to be an enemy. It becomes the very ground where wonder grows. So the principle is simple, though not easy. You cannot discover new oceans unless you're willing to lose sight of the shore. There are really only two ways to live. The first path is the one most of us know too well, the path of control. On this path, every step must be measured, every outcome predicted, every risk minimized. It feels safe at first. Like David holding Emily's bicycle, it gives the illusion of stability. But beneath that grip lies constant tension. Life becomes a series of calculations. What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I lose? The more tightly we cling, the narrower our world becomes. We trade freedom for security, but end up with neither. It is like living in a desert where nothing unexpected can grow, flat, dry, lifeless. The second path is the path of trust. Here, uncertainty is not an enemy, but a companion. Instead of gripping, we flow. Instead of demanding guarantees, we allow. This is not recklessness, it is participation. Like a jazz musician improvising, we don't control every note, but we trust the harmony to carry us. Life, then, is less about forcing perfection and more about discovering beauty in the unfolding. On this path, surprises are not interruptions, they are invitations. Alan Watts often compared life to music. If the goal were simply to reach the end of the song, we would only play the final chord. But the joy is in the playing, the dance between tension and release, the melody weaving through time. Path 1, the path of control, rushes to the end, fearing every wrong note. Path 2, the path of trust, dances with uncertainty, turning even mistakes into part of the rhythm. Think of society under a dictator versus a democracy. In a dictatorship, everything looks orderly, streets quiet, rules rigid, but underneath is fear, silence, lifelessness. In a democracy, there is noise, debate, even chaos. But out of that chaos emerges creativity, connection, freedom. So it is with the human soul. One path suffocates under its own order. The other breathes because it allows unpredictability. And so the choice stands before each of us. Will we insist on living as the desert, barren but controlled? Or will we risk becoming the forest, messy, unpredictable, yet alive with songbirds and wildflowers? The one-liner to remember: control builds walls, trust opens doors. There is something even deeper hiding beneath this paradox of control and trust. It is the mystery of not knowing. Most of us treat "I don't know" as weakness, as failure. From childhood, we are rewarded for having the answer, punished for uncertainty. But what if "I don't know" is not a confession of ignorance, but the doorway to freedom? Think about it. The eye cannot see itself. The knife cannot cut itself. The light cannot illuminate its own source. In the same way, life cannot fully explain itself while we are in the middle of living it. Yet this is not a flaw. It is a feature. The mystery is not something to solve, but something to participate in. Alan Watts loved to remind us of this with paradoxes. He would say, "The moment you know what life is, it slips away, because life is not a concept, it's an experience." Imagine trying to capture the ocean in a bucket. The moment you scoop it up, it stops being the ocean. It becomes just water. The vastness, the movement, the roar, all gone. That is what happens when we insist on reducing life to certainty. But when we let ourselves dwell in the unknown, something magical happens. Wonder returns. The ordinary becomes radiant. A child watching fireflies doesn't need to know the science of bioluminescence to feel awe. A lover doesn't need a guarantee of forever to feel the sweetness of a kiss. The mystery is not a problem to solve. It is the very thing that makes these moments alive. In fact, the willingness to not know is the source of all creativity. Every invention, every piece of music, every work of art begins in uncertainty. The scientist asks, "What if?" The artist whispers, "Let's see what happens." And the unknown is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility. So perhaps what almost no one knows is this: not knowing is not the end of wisdom. It is the beginning of it. And maybe the invitation of life is not to conquer the mystery, but to walk with it. To live as if the question mark is not a threat, but a lantern lighting the way only one step at a time. So we return to the paradox we began with. The harder we try to hold life, the more it slips away. The water leaks through clenched fists, but rests gently in open hands. What almost no one knows is that freedom is not found in certainty, but in the courage to live without it. Think of David watching Emily ride her bike alone for the first time. His instinct was to protect, to control. But in letting go, he discovered something far greater: her laughter, her independence, her joy. Life was never asking him for perfection. It was asking him for trust. We are all invited into that same trust. The unknown is not here to punish us. It is here to partner with us. Change, impermanence, the lack of guarantees, these are not enemies to be fought. They are the very rhythm of existence, the beat to which our hearts were made to dance. Alan Watts would often remind us that life is like music. You don't listen to a song just to hear the final note. You listen because the melody moves you, surprises you, carries you somewhere unexpected. And when the song ends, it lingers in you, not as a solved problem, but as a felt beauty. So it is with existence itself. The truth is simple: what is truly yours will never need to be forced. You don't have to trap it. You don't have to clutch it in fear. When you loosen your grip, you make space for life to reveal its hidden gifts. So let uncertainty remain a companion. Let mystery walk beside you. Trust that the path will unfold, step by step, like a forest revealing its trails only to those who dare to walk. And when doubt whispers, "But what if I fall?" let your heart answer, "Then I will learn to fly." Because almost no one knows this, but now you do. The unknown is not your enemy. It is your freedom.